back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the final story in the Mary Shelley trilogy, Army of Death, written by Jason Arnott. This is, as I stated, the final story in the Mary Shelley trilogy. Three complete stories, I should say, that features the Doctor travelling with the author of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. Though it is important to note that her first actual story with the Doctor is actually the last story in the anthology adventure, The Company of Friends. Now, with every era of a Doctor Who companion, we always have to have a nice balance of things. With Mary being set, being a certain flavour of a character, she is, because she has all of these connotations with horror and gothic, because, you know, she wrote horror stories like Frankenstein, the stories that we've had with her seem to gravitate towards the past. We had Mary's story, which is set in her time. We had Silver Turk, which was set in the future for her, but still very much in the past for us. And then we had The Witch from the Well, which was set in medieval times. So that was much in the past. Now, as great as that is, you can't have an era completely devoted to one aspect of the Doctor Who time traveling mythos. You have to have a nice balance of historical stories set in the past, and futuristic stories. Otherwise, the balance would be all over the place, and the whole fabric of the universe would unwind. Okay, that's a joke, but you get my gist. So, to finish off the trilogy, Jason Arnott has decided to make the story a futuristic adventure set in the distant future, even for us. So, we got like science and military forces and stuff. But it still keeps into the tune of the gothic aesthetic that the Mary Shelley's connotations derive from. So luckily we get some really great concepts between death and all the gothic stuff that you just want from a Mary Shelley story. Now, this story is quite interesting because despite it supposed to be the final appearance of Mary, I feel like the ending is open in such a way that that it can be allowed to open up the door for more Mary stories. Obviously that didn't happen, because this story, which is actually the last 8th Doctor story in the monthly range, came out in 2011, December of 2011. So that's kind of a shame, but yeah, I would love to have seen more with this pair, and I would love to see more gothic stories with the 8th Doctor. Also as well, just on a more, this marathons level, usually Doctor Who has a format of 4 episodes, 4 25, 50 minutes episodes, making up a story. This is a 4-part story with 2 episodes on each disc. It's 2 discs long. But for our marathon, for our way of watching these and listening to these, this is actually the last 4-parter that we'll be tackling with. The next stories and the stories after that will take on the new Who format of stories being usually 1 episode long, 60 minutes in length, if not 2 episodes long, each episode being around about 60 minutes of length. So that puts a great mark stone on this story. And I feel like the tradition to have 3, 4, multiple episodes making a story is very much classic Who. So in my eyes, this is the final story of the classic era in terms of my perspective of it. Obviously, there's obviously more stories in this format that's chronologically set after this, especially with the Charlie era, which sadly I don't own any stories, so I will not be tackling any 8th Doctor Mary story, 8th Doctor Charlie stories. But it is important to note that I did actually tackle the Sixth Doctor and Charlie's story. So if you're interested in those, please check those out, because they're really cool. So anyway, yeah, so let's get on to the story. This is the official Big Finish CD cover, and I really like that really cool skeleton with the beam and light size. You've got Paul McGann there and Julie Cox there, and you've got this like really cool tower, which reminds me a lot of the Emerald City from The Wizard of Oz. And like always, I make my own DVD cover. This is obviously a printed out version from DeviantArt, but I photoshopped on the Paul McGann logo on there. So that's the only really difference I've done. It looks really stunning. I'm really well how that turned out in terms of the printing quality. And the artist, I believe you just type in Doctor Who DVD covers, Big Finish DVD covers, DeviantArt, and he's like the first one you come up with. That's the back if anyone's interested. These are really cool. So anyway, on to the story. So the story starts off with Doctor basically promising Mary to go on this specific planet. Apparently it's a very nice, habitable colony of humans that have been derived from. But in actuality, it couldn't be far worse. It's basically an apocalypse story. This story is essentially Doctor Who meets the Evil Dead. Essentially, the setup of the plot in terms of all the information that we learn from prior to the story is that there were two great cities, but one of them was exploded and destroyed, and all of the citizens of this destroyed cities have actually been resurrected as a skeleton army, which actually had come into the other city, seemingly harming and even killing people that get in their way. There's also some sort of conspiracy between this woman that the Doctor and Mary quickly team up with, and it's like the first person they meet in this colony, and she has this thing against the current leader of this place. This leader, he's essentially controlling everything, and he can have armies, he can get the shield barrier up, but he gets to hear this strange voice in his head. It's seemingly being the guy who self-destructed the other city, and he tells him to lower the barriers, otherwise he will harm his partner, his girlfriend. Interesting to note is that this character, John Vallon, is played by the fantastic David Hardwood, who I'm more commonly known with for his work on Supergirl. He played the Martian Manhunter, but he's also appeared in Doctor Who in the 10th Doctor story, The End of Time, where he played the Prime Minister, the President in that story. I can't really remember. But to hear him, it's really unrecognisable. It was not until I looked onto the booklet for this did I even discover it was him. And when I realised that this character is being played by him, I was like, bloody hell, what a fantastic actor. You do kind of hear his voice when it's been told outright, this character is him. But if you didn't know it was him going in, you will continue to not know. So, high props to David. He's a fantastic actor. I'm so glad that he got an 8th Doctor audio adventures in it. In terms of Mary and the Doctor, there seems to be some sort of a dilemma between their relationship. Mary actually starts out the story writing in her journal about her missing her husband or husband-to-be, Percy Shelley, but she keeps getting distracted. She keeps getting interrupted in a sense by the Doctor, and the Doctor does kind of seemingly starts like showing off towards Shelley, and later on after they meet, the this woman soldier character, and she states that basically, no, this planet is a hell, there's bloody skeletons going around killing people, and they're clunking around murdering people just to get to the other city. Just the doctor's like, right, I'm sorry, you must be really missing Percy, and I'll take you home as soon as we're after this. And then Shelley kind of shouts at the doctor. We get a little dramatic scene in which she states that's like, you don't understand, you ruin people's lives. Like, I'm supposed to be in love with Percy, I adore him, but I can't get someone else out of my mind, Doctor. That person is you. And it seems like the Doctor's does not only notices that notices that Mary is taking a fancy to him, but not only that he kind of has blushed and he's kind of flattered in a way. But he does understand that he is kind of, it's a complex between their relationship, you know. He doesn't want to be like, he doesn't want to take, and he knows that she will grow up to be with Percy, but and that is the new Who influences here. Just to give a little backtrack, in the TV movie, one of the criticisms of the story in the TV movie was that they romanticized the Doctor. The Doctor was kissing girls, and there seemed to be a romance between him and his companion in that story, Grace. But in the new Who series, starting off with the Russell T Davies era, romance would become a huge, huge aspect in its stories and its characters, especially when it comes to the dynamic between the Doctor and his companions, where it always seems like the companions are romantically interested in the Doctor, whether they want to or not. This aspect has been highly criticised and by classic Who fans, and it's a huge topic of debate whether the Doctor or his companions should be romantically interested in one another, or whether it should be like one-sided, or romance just doesn't work in that aspect in Doctor Who. Personally, if you have to ask me, in my idea of the topic, I believe that it depends really on the writer, but personally, I'm not really interested in the idea unless it's River Song. I think River Song is the only time where not only does it really work, but I think at this point now, the Doctor's only real love interest should be River Song. I think they don't need to have another romantic interest and stuff. But so this is another example of this. And luckily, or should I say unluckily really, because this aspect is really like a scene or two. It does play in, there is more scenes than just one or two. Mary, the story intertwines with scenes of Mary writing in her journal, where she's talking about like how she's slowly becoming fascinated with the Eighth Doctor, but she knows that that's not good. She wants to go back to Percy, and she was like debating in herself. But apart from really that, it does feel like things stop, pacing stops, the story stops in this dilemma of Mary, of Mary's dilemma of her interests in the Doctor as a friend, or as a or taking like a fancy. I don't want to say it's love. She loves Percy Shelley, but she kind of takes a fancy. It's like the Doctor's showing her the universe. Of course, she's going to take a fancy to him. But I think because especially how that plot point ends in the post-credit scene, I believe it was a very distracting element of the story, because the story itself about the skeletons might not always work, but it's atmospheric, it's brilliant. absolutely fun. It's one of those stupid ideas. I don't think the story is trying to tell you anything. There's no... obviously every story in some way, shape or form is political, but it's clear by listening to this that any political connections were non-conscious. The writer didn't go into this putting his political status first. The idea of this story is just to have a fun blast with this like almost Evil Dead aspect of the story, with these skeletons creeping around, murdering people, and this really creepy demon voice controlling the leader of the city to lower his defenses. That voice is so bloody cool. But halfway through the story kind of becomes a political thriller in terms of the way it's structured. It's very strange. In one cliffhanger, a little bit of a spoiler, the Doctor actually stops one of the skeletons from trying to reach its destination, and the skeleton starts talking. It says, kill, kill, kill me. It wants to die, it's in suffering, it's in pain. And the Doctor basically clicks that these creatures, they're actually, the people who were killed, they're still alive and they're being mind controlled. The Doctor also gets captured by the city leader, who basically says that the woman he befriended, the woman who he first met, coming to this colony, actually murdered the previous leader. And there's actually video evidence to support this. The Doctor mentions how he also killed the president, a leader at one point, and there was video evidence, but he was guilty. A really fun and a nice little nod to the Deadly Assassins, in which the same thing happened to the Doctor in his fourth incarnation at that time. And so the Doctor basically goes to the ruined city of the other place to find out what's going on, and he didn't believe that this woman, because he felt like she was this rebel type person, but not somebody who would go out and assassinate someone. The creature inside the leader's head claims to be a political leader from the other city who is said to have blown up the city. But when the Doctor arrives there, it turns out that not only is he is in some sort of suspended animation where his body is kind of asleep, but his voice is sort of alive. But it seems like he has no idea what's going on, and he seems to be trapped here, and that there is another force at play here. And the Doctor's trying to click, and the story kind of takes a lot of detours and stuff, and I will admit, it does kind of get very overwhelming, and some of the details I didn't quite understand where they came from, but I guess you can say a massive spoiler here. It turns out the villain is actually the previous leader of the city that's still standing. He essentially had discovered a way to control people's bodies, and that he's basically gone absolutely mad, and he believes himself to be a deity, or at least he thinks that he's becoming a deity, and so he's digitally put his mind into this creature he's invented. And the only way really to put this transfer can work is by killing the host body. So what he had done is he had controlled the body of the woman who assassinated him, and it turned out that he was the one who made her assassinate him, essentially killing himself, so that his brain, his soul, as they say, because it's in time with that gothic aesthetic, instead of saying brains, their minds, they say souls, Love it, absolutely love it. There's a great little moment where the Doctor is even like, souls, minds, same thing. And because Mary is from the past, she is kind of thinking, no, it's the soul. The soul is getting transported to the other bodies. And this creature is so powerful that he can also bring back and control the bodies of the dead with their souls still intact. So these zombies, shall we say, these skeleton armies, still have the minds of the people that died in them. Mental. And the Doctor is planning on basically sacrificing himself. He's stuck onto a chair. He's about to ask Mary and the other woman to put this crown over his head so he can put his brain into the computer so he can fight this this deity. I believe they start calling him the Bone King, the Bone Deity, the Bone God, or something like that. I can't remember. It doesn't say on the back of here, I don't think. I can't see it. But yeah, they essentially call it the bone something, the boneness, the bone maker or something. And the Doctor's basically about to sacrifice himself when suddenly, when he's tied up to the chair, ready to get thrown on his head, the woman, the girl who had basically been controlled earlier, she actually puts it on. She tells the Doctor, like, right, I know your plan. You were going to sacrifice yourself because we both know that using this device will kill its host. It will destroy the host to put their mind into this deity and complex it. We also get a great weird chase scene in which this creature is apparently like a giant size, and once the Doctor and Sherry and this girl are talking, you can kind of hear it stomping in the background, like almost like a kaiju going around wrecking the place. Just showing how mad that this story doesn't have any boundaries in terms of a visual status. It can have these giant monsters. It can have an army of zombie dead. And so she puts on the device and her brain gets parted into this deity creature. And she makes it fall off a cliff, destroying it. And the Doctor and Shelley head off into the TARDIS. As I've stated, though, there's a post-credit scene in which Shelley... Actually, I tell a lie. At the end of the story, Shelley actually gives her diary to the Doctor so that he can know what it feels like in the mind of his companions in their... into what they can see and what they can feel. So hopefully, Mary's basically hoping that the Doctor can understand his companion's point of view. So then that leads obviously into the post-credit scene in which Mary starts off a completely new journal, and which she states that, like, I've learned so much with the Doctor, but it's time for me to ask him to take me home where I'm going to live my life with Percy Shelley. Now obviously this scene doesn't actually take place. In this post-credit scene, she's still in the TARDIS. In fact, the Doctor pops up asking her for a cup of tea or something. But it's basically there where it's stated that she wants to go home and the Doctor takes her home. But we never actually see it, so technically we could have more stories with her. And we could get a final story with her later on in the future, but that's never happened so far. Big Finish, please, more Mary Shelley stories. Thank you. Please, we want this. As fans, we want this. More Gothic, more Mary Shelley, more Julie Cox, more Paul McGann. Thank you. So anyway, that's the Army of Death. Overall, it is a really fun adventure that flies by. It's quickly paced. It's a lot of action. There's a lot of imagery. If you like, you're stupid. Not stupid as in they're bad, but stupid as in the writers were like, right, we're going to have just so much fun. We're going to have armies of the dead. We're going to have giant deity monsters. We're going to have a crackling, laughing villain. then this story is for you. But I don't recommend it if you're trying to look into anything deeper. There's not much really here in terms of what it has to say or anything. It's just a fun story, and I don't think it's going to hit anyone's top 10. But I believe Silver Turk might actually be in people's top 10s. But this is still a lot of fun. I'm very happy with how the Mary Shelley trilogy ended, and I can't wait to hear some more Paul McGann. So there you go, that's Army of Darkness, the last 4-part adventure that I'm aware of anyway, in the marathon. So join me next time when the 8th Doctor goes to another colony of humans where they're trying to get help from a familiar foe, and the Doctor teams up with Lucy Bloody Miller. So join me next time for the blood of the Daleks, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!